Hello, Devlin here with you, and welcome to another edition of my pirate radio show. We are coming up on St. Patrick's Day, and I didn't think I could really stretch a whole episode on St. Patrick's Day. I guess if I really was clever, I could have thought about it. I could have recommended, Irish movies or Irish recording artists, but I decided I really didn't want to do that because St. Patrick's Day is, it's a good day. It's a cool day to celebrate, wear green or do whatever you want. And I do have a little bit of Irish in me. My mother was totally German, but my dad always said that he was a Heinz 57, which means that he basically had a little bit of everything. He had a little bit of English in him, he had a little bit of Welsh, Scottish, and Irish was in there as well. So I do have a little bit of Irish in me. And, St. Patrick's Day is not one of those holidays that I think about, oh, it's coming up. I do have some green in my thing, and when I think of green, it is actually literally St. Patrick's Day stuff, like, hats. I got some derbies and stuff like that. And luckily with Value Village, I'll get to wear them because they allow that at certain sales and on the actual day. And I think I have some shamrock earrings I will crank out. But I decided I wanted to do a little segment on it. And it's about a week until St. Patrick's Day. So I thought I'd do it early because instead of just dropping it on St. Patrick's Day and then you'd have to hear this after St. Patrick's Day's over. But some of you are listening to this late anyhow. It probably is over already, but whatever the case is, I wanted to talk a little bit about it, and I thought I could segue this into something, what I think of St. Patrick's Day. Because, I'm proud of my Irish heritage, even though it's very, very tiny. And I think it's a great day. A lot of people seem to enjoy it. I don't really honestly do anything. As I said, I'll wear green. Maybe if I take it one step further, I might go and watch one of my favorite shows like, Boondock Saints or The Commitments or something. I can't think of a lot of Irish movies, but I'm sure if I look, there's a lot of Irish movies I do have. But I might do that. It's not like I go out drinking. I don't go out for the green beer or anything like that, or go out and wax me shillelagh or anything. Go out and kiss some Blarney Stones or whatever you have. But, I think it's a fun holiday. People seem to like it, where they dress up. And, I've met a couple people at Value Village and, some true Irish people and, they're buying green and they're proud of it and they love it. And I love that aspect of it. And, I think we all get to be a little bit Irish. It doesn't matter if you're Italian or, or anything else. On March 17th, you get to be Irish because, we let everybody in. And that's a wonderful thing. And if it comes together because we're wearing green or if we're going out drinking. And it got me thinking a little bit about, my Irish side. And what I always respected about the Irish is that they're one of the few, and I could be wrong, I'm stepping my bounds here, but from all the Irish people I know, they seem proud of their heritage. They have stereotypes that, people play up in the media, like big drinkers, get into fights easily, partying, have a bit of a temper, and they embrace it. It's one of the few cultures that I actually see that actually embrace the stereotypes. They don't care if they're known for being a drinker. They don't, care for being known of their, they play hard, they fight hard, they drink hard. And I'm not saying everybody, I'm not putting everybody into a mold, but I just love that they seem to embrace it. Now we live in a society that it seems everybody tries to forget the past or forget the stereotypes. You can't do that in the stereotypes. And I know this is going to lead right off the garden path, but it got me thinking about one of the things I respect most about the Irish is they seem to respect their stereotypes because they realize that not everybody fits into that stereotype. But But they do know that those stereotypes are true. So, because being a gay man, we see a lot of stereotypes. And some people look at me and, how come you're not offended by that? I am offended for you for that. When, somebody comes out and pretends to be like a blatant queen, or, walking around with their hands flailing or stuff like that. And it doesn't offend me in the least. If a, straight person makes a gay comment or something, or, uses a gay slur, it doesn't, it might shock me a little bit if that's not something they normally do. But I'm not offended by it, because if I know the person, I know where it's coming from. But we're so sensitive nowadays, and so many, different groups just, oh, that's offensive, that's offensive. One of the reasons that drive me crazy about Facebook is how, over just the past couple of years, everybody seems to get so offended so easily. So many groups, oh, you can't show that. That's a stereotype of what we are, and we gotta stop showing those things. See, I'm all for our past is our past. And we seem to have this need to remove the past. We gotta forget the past in order to move to the future. And I think that's ridiculous, because I think we need to remember our history. And I think I've brought this up many times on the show, and probably many, many more, because it's something I totally strongly believe in. Is that, as much as society tries desperately to break everybody into this mold that we're all the same, we should all be treated the same, there is always going to be stereotypes. And even if you don't want to admit it, people play up the queen, or if they, oh, hey, you'll hear guys, trying to portray, gay men. That doesn't offend me, because I'll be honest with you, there are people that are like that. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but if that's a person, that's the way they are, let them be that way. Just because it's oh my God, that's such a stereotype, maybe not to them, that's just the person they are. I love when, and I can't believe I went from St. Patrick's Day to the gay community, but this is for all, people who are offended easily. But I love when gay people come out of the closet, especially men. I'll go for men on this because it's more obvious, but suddenly they'll start acting a little differently. And in some cases, they'll even suddenly have a more feminine lisp than they already had. And it makes me laugh, because they never had it before, and now it's really exaggerated, and it drives me crazy, because they claim that they always had it. And in some cases they do, but I've met straight men that have that same lisp, and it's, people are probably quick to judge. But to me, it's well, let them be. If they want to be stereotypes, that's fine. They don't see themselves as stereotypes because they're just being themselves. But, sure. And you know what? If you want to forget that these things happen, or that there are stereotypes in the world, that's fine. But my thing is, instead of standing around being offended and trying to get everybody into a mold where we're all the same and equal, and equality, that's great. But when you start trying to mold people and try to have everybody be the same, you're starting to head into a very dangerous society. Because, I'm probably totally off tangent here, but I know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you can figure it out too. But what I'm trying to say is it's dangerous when you try to take people's uniqueness away and tell them you can't act like that. That's bad for our culture. That's bad for who we are as people, because you're presenting a stereotype. But if you're suppressing who they actually are, then I think that might be a little worse, in my humble opinion. And that's what I respect about the Irish, because there is this stereotype. And I like how, you can't put down certain groups and stuff. We can't talk about that. But still, people go out and get drunk on St. Patrick's Day and wear green and wear Kiss Me I'm Irish buttons and stuff. And they support that stereotype because it's okay, because we're just having fun and getting drunk. But God forbid if we ever did that with anything else. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there are things that are bad out there. You know, when I say I don't get offended by people who are playing up, you know, being gay or, you know, I'm the campus fag or something like that, I don't get offended by that. But I do get offended by certain things. A movie that so many people seem to cherish when growing up, Ace Ventura, had a scene where Jim Carrey's character, Ace, actually kisses, I believe it's Sean Young, the actress. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I saw the movie. But anyhow, it's later revealed, and spoilers, if you haven't seen Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, he finds out that she is a man who is either transitioning to be a woman. They don't really go into details because a movie like that is for fun. It's for comedy and stuff like that. Okay? And I know people who find this to be such a beloved thing and even show it to kids. And when he finds out that he kissed this man, woman, and then they show a montage of stuff that he does to get the taste out of his mouth. Now, this happened like a while ago, but he does it. And I remember one of the scenes was he actually is using either like a toilet brush or a plunger. Like he's using a plunger on his mouth. And I remember being in the theater feeling really offended. And don't get me wrong, I like gross out comedies, I like the whole works. But the fact that he was offended of kissing a male, a transgender, whatever the character was, transsexual, whatever. But the fact that he would rather put up a plunger that was plunging in shit, that's okay to put up to your mouth, but kissing another man, that really got me offended. And that's different from, you know, playing up stereotypes. I'll take stereotypes all you want over stuff like that. But I just couldn't believe that I was in a theater, and don't get me wrong, I was drinking the Kool-Aid too. I was loving Ace Ventura at the beginning. I had big belly laughs and stuff, and then two things happen that scene. And then just the way when he has to get into a mental institute, what he uses to get in there, like putting on a tutu and stuff like that, just automatically makes you crazy. I started getting really offended. And not in a bad way. I just was like, I can't believe there's parents here who brought their kids and they're just having a laugh a minute. And seeing kids laughing at, like, look, he's putting a plunger up to his mouth. But, you know, the fact that that's okay, but not kissing another man. And I thought it was really disturbing to me. So when I see people playing up stereotypes or talk about stereotypes, it doesn't bother me. You know, nowadays we all start groups, like we can't show that anymore. We can't show that. You know, stop trying to destroy history. We gave people shit for banning books and stuff and like that. We have to, you know, I'm sure it's hard for black people to watch something like Gone with the Wind now. You know, a movie that's still considered a great, great movie, but like the portrayal of like slaves and stuff. But it was a part of Hollywood. It was a part of history. What are we supposed to do? Just not watch that anymore? Disney took a movie like Fantasia and they had stereotypes like having black children and stuff, and you know, with the big lips and stuff like that, and making them really dark. And Disney actually like cut those out of the movie, found ways to manipulate them out. And to me, it was just like, that's ridiculous. You try to find a copy of Song of the South with Uncle Remus and stuff like that, because Disney won't release it. And the real reason is because it's like, you know, they think it's racist now and stuff. But it's part of our culture. And I think we learn from that kind of thing. So, for me, I'm not offended by stereotypes. And I don't think we should necessarily get rid of them. You want to get rid of stereotypes. Instead of trying to stop other people from doing it, don't be a stereotype. If you're offended by this kind of stereotype, don't be it. Prove people that, you know, like, I'll use my own, like, gayness, okay? I like to do what I like to do, but if I am offended by stereotypes, I'm not going to try to stop people from being themselves. I'm going to just stop and prove to people that I'm more than just a gay man. You know, I don't walk around flouncy. Okay, I probably do. But what I'm saying, I'm using it as an example. Instead of trying to change the world to get rid of that and stopping people being the way they are. Maybe that's why I get a little bit more flamboyant as I get older. You know, when I paint my nails even more radical colors and I start wearing big scarves and brooches and want to be more feminine in some ways. Maybe I'm doing it because I like to just be myself. And if people can't deal with it, then I automatically know these are people I don't want to hang with. But anyhow, if I was offended by these stereotypes, you know, like, hello guys and stuff like, I wouldn't talk like that, and I don't. And so that's my way of doing it. I don't do that. But I hate that we try to change it. And so, getting back to the topic, the reason I love the Irish is they still get stereotyped. Other groups fight their stereotype. Not all, I'm saying it. Sometimes the Italians like to embrace their stereotypes and stuff. And I love when people do that because there's just so many people out there just trying to, oh, we got to stop stereotypes. We got to stop. Why? They're everywhere we go. You can't fight it. So why don't we embrace it? And if you don't like stereotypes, then don't be one. Show the world that, look, you can be this and this and this. But I like that this Irish seem to, come on, let's drink, let's fight, then we'll drink some more and make up and be friends. You know, I love that about them. And that's why I think St. Patrick's Day is a great time to celebrate. And if you go out and drink, all I ask you is to be responsible. You don't have to drink and be an arse and get hurt people or go drink and drive. Be responsible. Get a designated driver, go have some, you know, take some friends, make sure somebody's not drinking, or get a cab, make sure you have cab money. Have fun. I don't care if you drink until you're inebriated. If that's your thing, go do it, but don't hurt other people. So that's my St. Patrick's Day spiel, and we're going to move on from that. I got a couple more segments coming up, but let's play some Irish music. Let's get a little bit in the St. Patrick's Day mood, shall we? All right, let's do that, and I'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back, and I was thinking on that last segment, at the end I mentioned to not drink and drive, and that's a huge one for me, because I have no problem with people going out having a good time, you know, drinking, you know, doing whatever vices you have. But my thing is when you start hurting people, that's when I have a bit of an issue. But anyhow, having nothing to do with the actual don't drink and drive, I just was thinking of the fact that, I don't drink. I used to drink a little bit, but not anything really huge, and I don't drive. And that's the reason I don't get invited to a lot of, not get-togethers, but I don't get to go out drinking with people too often because I'm one of those friends that people, you know, don't like to hang with because, you know, I'm not getting shit-faced with the rest of you, even though I can have a great time without it. But then at the same time, you know, there's lots of people who would hang out with people who don't drink, but the fact that I don't have a car or don't drive makes me less fun because I can't even be a designated driver, so people just don't really want me to hang around them when there's a big drinking gathering because they just assume I'm not useful. And I'm not lying to this. I remember when I was younger, in my 20s, I actually lost a friend because he thought that I wasn't fun because I didn't drink. But anyhow, that's another story. But anyhow, I actually wanted to talk in this segment about my decisions to not drive. Because a lot of people think, you know, why did you choose not to drive? And number one, the thing I like to blame the most, and most people ask me this, and I do think this had a really big impact on me driving. I'm going to actually tell a few stories in this segment about why, but the first one was when I was probably in grade I want to say 7 or 8, they actually showed us a movie that I remember the movie was called Night Moves, and it actually used that Bob Seger song. And I remember it was all about these kids who were getting ready to go to a party, and they got drunk, and they wound up in a car accident with no survivors. And I remember that for me at that age, who was I didn't start watching horror movies until literally I was a lot older, especially gory ones. Now I can watch any, gore and stuff like that, but back then I was still very protected by it, Even like the version of Jaws and The Exorcist, I saw were all edited on TV, and they still scared the shit out of me. But anyhow, I remember that I watched this film, and at the very end, the police come and show... I can't remember. I've actually looked for this on YouTube, because I really want to find this movie again. Only because I remember how graphic it was and how it freaked me out, because I believe they showed, blood, and the kids were obviously dead. But I don't know if I make it bigger in my mind because I haven't seen it. So the reason I look for it every once in a while on YouTube is because I want to see if it was just my memory and I've made it bigger than it is, or I just decided that I just want to... Sometimes I like to go look at things that scared me as a kid, and then when I rewatch them, I think, boy, it takes... I really made that bigger than it was. So I always blame that movie, because that movie stuck with me. I remember being haunted by that movie, so much so that I used to be even afraid to hear Night Moves come on in a car. Yeah, right up until I was in my early 20s. Now, I absolutely adore Night Moves. But there was a time when it came on the radio, back in the day when we listened to the radio in the car, I would just have to turn it because I would think we'd get in a car accident because that song was on. Anyhow, so I had a couple other experiences that kept me from driving too, but that's the one I blame the most. I remember my brother and I, we talk about songs that make me freak out sometimes. Not anymore, I'm a lot older than that. But we were coming home from a drive-in once. My brother, me, and I think there might have been some friends in the car. And we basically were coming home around the Clapison Corner area. And a car basically ran a couple people off the road. And we actually were in kind of I want to say a spin, but I don't think it was exaggerated like that. But we literally were zooming. Sorry about the cough, by the way. I forgot to mention I had a cold last week, and once I get a cough, it's here to stay for a little while. But anyhow, and I remember we were coming home, having a great night after the drive-in, and Stairway to Heaven was playing, by Led Zeppelin. And then we got ran off the road by this car, and it also ran another car off the road, and then I remember the other car, we were just checking if we were okay, and we were fine, we were just shocked and stuff. And again, we got Stairway to Heaven still playing on the radio when this is all happening, so Stairway to Heaven kind of freaked me out in a car too for a little while. And then I remember the car that also got it just chased the other car, and my brother said, I'm going to follow them and see what happens, because if they need my information, I'm going to tell them that this guy definitely, ran us off the road. And I remember we eventually found them just before Dundurn Castle, where the graveyard is, and the one car managed to pull the other one, and they just wound up getting into a fight. And because it didn't look like it was going to go to the police, my brother just slowed down, watched, and then just kind of left, because it was quite obvious the guy was so freaked out. This was not going to be something we're calling the police for. We're going to just take care of it ourselves, so we never knew what happened. But that spin in the car really shook me up a lot. The other two times were with my dad, and they were really scary, scary times. The first time was, and it happened around Dundurn Castle. Maybe I should have a fear of Dundurn Castle and not a fear of driving. But the first time was, we used to go up to this watered-down farmer's market. It was a wonderful thing. We're going back to when, Waterdown wasn't even built up yet. And it was a fabulous farmer's market. Actually, I remember it being just like an old-fashioned, like, farm with some barns that, they sold stuff. Then eventually they knocked that down and actually made it like a big building with it. I don't even think it's there anymore, but every Saturday we used to go up to this, and lots of great memories. I used to love playing with the radio and going shopping with my dad, and my dad liked to shop all over the place. He wasn't one, let's shop just here. Like, we'd go to the farmer's market, then we'd go to Valdi's. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And that was a place where you could buy canned goods and stuff a lot cheaper, and then we'd go to, like, Dominion or wherever we'd shop. Anyhow, so one day we were up at the farmer's market, and our car was overheating. The radiator was, you could just see smoke coming out of it. So it was really scary, but my dad wanted to get home. And as I said, we were up again in the Clapperson Corner area. So my dad was doing this thing where he would drive a little bit, then let the car cool down, put some water in, and then drive again until it overheated. Then we'd stop again. He just wanted to get home so we could get it to a mechanic. So he put some water in again, but he knew that the next one was going to be the far one, because we were at the top of Clapperson's Corner, and the next place to stop when we were on the highway was, around where Dundurn Castle was. So he literally, put some water in, and it was scary, just driving on the highway, smoke billowing out of the car, seeing it start, and then knowing it was getting worse. So as we were getting close to Dundurn Castle, he drove into the parking lot. And when we got smoke just coming out, we can barely see what's going on. And it was like a Saturday, it was a Saturday, because we did our shopping on Saturday mornings. And so it was packed. This is back in the day when Dundurn Castle, people would go to it. And I don't know if some of you remember, but there was this bird sanctuary that they had, where they actually had big cages with birds. I don't think they have it there anymore. So my dad was looking for a place to park, but there wasn't any. So there was this small path that my dad said, well, when I was a kid, and I always remembered that sometimes it was cool when my dad said, when I was a kid, because it would lead to a really great story. But sometimes I knew it would also lead us onto a path of terror. And I remember this was one of those cases, because my dad said, I remember when I was a kid, this path led to more parking. Well, unfortunately, he took the path, and I'm saying, Dad, I really don't know if this is more parking. Doesn't this go to the bird aviary? The aviary? I can't even remember what they call them. Anyhow, he just kept going, no, I'm pretty sure this is more parking. He literally stopped on the brakes, and we were surrounded by people. The fact that we did not hit anyone still to this day blows my mind, because of the fact that we saw faces. They were just so close to us, and there's the bird, aviary, I think it's called. Aviary. I can't say it. I cannot say it. Anyhow, it was crazy. And I was just like, oh my God, Dad, that was too close for comfort. And again, I was younger. I was not ready to drive yet when all this happened, and it kind of freaked me out. But the next time really freaked me out was the last time I took a drive with my dad, and I was probably in my early 20s when this happened. I remember I told this story at a show, and my brother never knew this, and he said, boy, that sounded scary. My brother and sister-in-law at the time they went away for a week on vacation, and they decided, my dad didn't have a car at that point. He'd take the bus everywhere. And he was getting on in years, and they decided, we'll leave the car with him so he can go out grocery shopping and doing a couple things. And I remember he thought that was great. So my mother wanted something at the White Rose. There's a name for you older listeners. And at the time there was a big one up on the mountain. So we went up to the mountain to go to the White Rose, and I went with him. And halfway, he hadn't driven in a little bit, and he was very jerky with the stops and starts. I was already kind of getting a little nervous. And then all of a sudden, halfway up the mountain, my dad said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you something, son, and I really need your help right now." And I said, "Yeah, Dad, what is it?" Saying it just as nervously as that. And basically he said, "Okay, well, I can't see the lights." And I said, "What? Pardon me?" And he says, "I'm having trouble with the sun in my eyes, seeing if it's red or green or yellow. So what I'm going to need you to do is you are going to read the lights for me." Talk about scary as hell. My job when I was in the car was always playing with the thing. Even when I was in my 20s, I was still radio guy. Now my job was to make sure my dad gets us to White Rose and back in one piece. And so, I'd be like, green, green, oh, yellow, 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 red, red, red. It was the most frightening drive ever. And then when we came back, my dad was just basically, I don't think I'm going to take the car out again. My dad didn't like to admit when he was getting older and stuff, but I think he was visibly scared too that, we could have been in a dangerous situation. And because of that, he told my mom, I said, I'm going to start taking the bus again because that just was a little too scary for me. And, I knew it was defeating to him because I can see when you get older, there comes a point where, people start losing their independence. And people always tell me, well, you should have learned to drive because that's a big part of independence. And I agree. And there was a side to me that I think I would have loved to learn how to drive, just to have that ability to just take off somewhere or go on little trips. Because I absolutely love driving. Like, I love when we drive up for 3.5 hours to go to, Mike's parents' cottage or where they live, and I love little trips like that, driving around with my nephew Jonathan and, driving when we go up to his place and we drive back to Hamilton. And I love it. But the truth of the matter is I early on, and I wish more people were like this, and I'm glad I'm always honored when I meet people who don't drive because they kind of usually tell me similar situations that they get nervous when they get behind a wheel. And I am like that. And I early on decided, you know what? I don't care if it was movie or bad experiences. I don't feel comfortable in a car. And the reason why is because it's not because I'm afraid that people are going to, hit me or I'm going to, it's because I'm afraid that I'm going to take a life. And I'm a nervous wreck to think I could not live if I got into an accident and took out someone. I know that's like, oh, you shouldn't be thinking of that and stuff. But I knew that I just get tensed up, I get and I think it's a big deal that I at least admitted that I don't think mentally I can handle this situation. And I do feel it may have dropped me a little bit in independence, but I also think that it's also brave of me to give up something like that. Because, driving is such a part of life, but I don't consider life a checklist. As I get older, I realize that so many people, young people, just have this checklist, you go to school, you learn how to drive, you go to college, you meet someone, you get married, you have kids, you get a mortgage, And I don't think life should be that way. And so, every once in a while I meet people who've done fantastic in life, and when I hear they haven't learned how to drive, I love it because it's like, oh, they knew that they just didn't want to do it. They couldn't do it or just didn't want to do it. And it shows me that, when I used to convince myself, yeah, I lost an independence level because of that, I remind myself that no, because I probably picked it up in other ways, but also picked it up in the fact that I was brave enough to say, I can't handle driving. Mentally, I think it would be not good for me. And I think that alone puts me at a new independent level because I know my own restrictions. And there's a lot of people out there who can't drive that should have said the same thing as me, and they get into accidents, wind up killing people. And other people, they probably were born to drive. 12 they could have took the test and do it. But, I think we force people to do things just because it's on the list of life. And I don't agree with that. I always tell people, follow your own list. Make your own list. It doesn't have to be the same way. It could be certain things. Maybe you don't want to get married, but you want to have kids. Maybe you want to get married, but you don't want to have kids. Whatever the case is, make your own list. That's why I don't drive. I still blame that movie, and I'll be looking for that movie till the day I die. And once I do see it, I'm sure it's not going to be as gory as I wrote it out to be, but I'm very intrigued when I do come across it. Anyhow, I got another segment coming up. We're going to take a small break, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, and we're here with the final segment, and a couple of weeks ago I had Gary Reed on the show, and love having Gary on the show, and we tried something new called Soundtrack of My Life. It's basically something I stole from Entertainment Weekly. I won't lie. I'm not going to try to, if I come up with something and it's not mine, I'll say it's either I stole it or it's a tribute and salute. I prefer tribute and salute. Anyhow, we tried it with him for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. Basically, I asked him a bunch of questions about songs or artists, about, what reminds him of certain things and stuff. And when I was cleaning up my office, because I'm hoping to have a guest in next week, I found the sheet of the questions I asked him. And basically, I remember getting a couple emails saying, how come you didn't answer? Gary was the only one who answered. And, well, that's because Soundtrack of My Life is supposed to be about them. It's not like Topics Teaserama where we both say it. I may have said a couple in there, but I didn't do it. So I decided I'm going to do it right now because it is something I'd like to do with people, especially musically inclined people that I know love a lot of music. So I'm going to do Soundtrack of My Life with myself right now, and if you're interested, you can follow along. And by all means, in your head, listen to the questions, and I'd love to hear what you think. Or if you come on the show sometime, I will do Soundtrack of My Life with you. Okay, up first, the song that I bought with my own money, or, the single or album. Well, I definitely remember the two 45s I bought. I probably bought a lot of kids' albums before that, but I think my parents probably bought them. But the ones I remember buying with my own, allowance money when, I stopped kind of buying candy and toys and decided I like music so much. And I was lucky to have a brother who had a really good music library, and he always let me use them, and that was great. That's Paul. He likes to get a shout out now and again. And anyhow, but the ones I remember buying, it was on the same day. I bought Donna Summer's Last Dance. So that shows my age around because it was still on the charts. And I loved it. It was one of my favorite songs, and Paul didn't have it, and I decided I needed it. So Last Dance. That same day I remember also buying Mana Mana by the Muppets. So I was still a kid at heart still. So I hadn't totally, grown out of my child phase. But who doesn't like Mana Mana? Come on. Mana Mana. Okay, sorry. If I do that, you're going to keep singing it. A song that reminds me of my teen years. So many here, because as I said, music was a big part of my life. My brother would play it. Even my mother played it a lot around the house, and me. For my teen years, because I grew up in the 80s, I get such good nostalgic feels from all those great 80s, Duran Duran, Culture Club, Eurythmics. They take me to a time. There's just so many. It's hard to just place one. But to be honest with you, as I get older, some Bruce Springsteen and John Mellencamp, like Glory Days and stuff like that, really start, meaning a lot more to me and, stuff like that. But, so I'm gonna bow out and say a whole bunch of stuff. A song that I love to rock out to. Oh, there's a lot of them too, but if I had to pick just one, and I do rock out. You know, I know a lot of people think I probably dance gaily around my house, which I do quite often, but there are songs that I just want to raise my fist to. Well, just the other day I was in my Walkman, Twisted Sisters' We're Not Gonna Take It comes out. And if I'm having a day where I'm just a little off or something, I just want to just sing out loud and, you know, raise the roof. You know, we're not gonna take it. So I'll go with Twisted Sister just because it's such a pounding type song. But there's a tons. I love Rush's Spirit of Radio. I love to crank that up whenever that comes up. And I'm not a huge Rush fan. I like some of their stuff, but Spirit of Radio just gets me in the cojones. It's a nice way of saying it. Anyhow, a song that reminds me of my first love, Endless Love. Being gay and not openly gay, I had a lot of unrequited loves. I will talk about that at some point. Basically, I fell in love with so many people. You know, you became my friend, I fell in love with you. But the first boy I had a crush on, and I won't name him. I don't think he listens to this show, but I won't name him. But basically, he was very close to me, and I remember so many memories with him. And even still, I don't see him that often, but when I see him, my heart still leaps because of some of the moments we shared. And Endless Love, I'll go with. Diana Ross, Lionel Richie. It takes me back right to that era. I remember, you know, sitting with him and it would come on the radio and every word just took me back to that place. A song that I wish I wrote, again, just so phenomenal, many songs, but I'm going to go with, there's a couple of songs on the Phantom of the Paradise album that I think are songs that sound like I wrote. There's one called Phantom's Theme that the lyrics to me, I'm not a big one of saying, you know, I want to put lyrics on my body with a tattoo. But there are a couple songs that just, it's like, did I write this? Did I write this? And this one is all about the goodness and the badness that fight constantly. And every day you're fighting the demons inside of you. And I would kill to write that. Paul Williams to me has become like a god to me. The more I get to know about him, and he's just phenomenal. And if you've never seen Phantom of the Paradise, put that on your list immediately. It's a wonderful film. Brian De Palma. Paul Williams is in the film, and he wrote all the music. And listen for Phantom's Theme. A song that reminds you of your mom and dad. If you're a Facebook friend, you probably know already. My mom, after she died, the Tarzan movie, the Disney version, was in the air, and the song You'll Be in My Heart constantly makes me think of my mom. When it comes on, there's a ton of songs, as always, but that's the song that just... There's certain songs when they come on, and they're people that have passed. I look up into the sky at the heavens, like I'm thinking of you, Mom. And You'll Be in My Heart by Phil Collins is one of them. She also had this thing about doing the housekeeping to In the Navy by the Village People. And I always smile when that song comes on, because it reminds me of my mom, because out of all these, like, Bobby Vintons and, you know, Tom Jones and Charlie Pride, she had a thing for the Village People in the Navy, and she just cranked that. My dad, Pinocchio, When You Wish Upon a Star. If you're a regular listener, you know it was the first time I saw him cry. We went to see Pinocchio. I know that song touches your heart, his heart, and every time it comes on now, I think of him. Around the holidays, when I think of both of them, Silent Night, because they told me both wonderful stories about Silent Night that meant something to them. So Silent Night is one of my favorite Christmas songs because of that. My go-to karaoke song. I sing karaoke, yes, I'm one of those. I love singing karaoke. For a while, that crazy little thing called Love was my go-to one. It would be the one I'd always sing first. I get a little more adventurous because I can sing all kinds of stuff. And I will also throw in Copacabana at the Copa, because I sang this one night, and a whole bunch of drunken soccer moms just went nuts. They were like, woo! Got up, started dancing, and I had this incredible power because these women were dancing to Copacabana. And I've done it a couple times now, and if you do it later in the night and you see that there's a big group of women that are drinking of a certain age, Copacabana is like catnip to them. They just get up and just absolutely go nuts. I may have told this story before, but worth telling again. So if you want to make them dance, do Copacabana. A song that people would be surprised would be in your collection. I always say stuff like the Ramones, because speaking of songs that I rock out to, I got a lot of my musical influences from my dad and my mom and my brother growing up. But the Ramones was probably one of the first ones that I picked up on my own. I saw Rock and Roll High School and absolutely fell in love with the movie. And Ramones, I like getting punky every once in a while, and you know, the Sex Pistols, even stuff like Green Day and stuff like that. But the Ramones still do it for me. I just love their style. I love the songs they do. You know, they never ever tried to be anything they weren't. They just, yeah, this is us. You know, they didn't even like talk through songs. Just 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, you could see like footage of a Ramones concert, and they'd be on stage for 40 minutes, and you swear they did like about 30 songs just because they just wouldn't talk. Just 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and then next song. It's pretty amazing. So that would, you might also be surprised that I have, you know, a lot of old jazz. I love jazz and big band stuff I have. And yeah, every once in a while some heavy metal and some rap. A song that reminds me of my brother, or brothers, well, my one brother, Ernie, my oldest brother, would probably be something like Rockin' Robin, because I know he kind of introduced me to a lot of 1950s doo-wop groups, and I know he used to love Rockin' Robin. I only drove around with him in his car a couple times, but he always would have the 50s station on, and he loved that stuff, and I know he'd crank it up louder when Rockin' Robin came on, and I know it makes me smile thinking of him. My brother Paul, anything by Barry Manilow. He was a big Barry Manilow fan, probably still is, but I don't think he follows his career quite as much as he did. But he introduced me to so much Barry Manilow, and I'm happy about that. I always joke, you introduced Barry Manilow to me, but honestly, it moves me. His music is phenomenal, and as I get older, I realize even more essences of it. I also think of him with Paradise by the Dashboard Light, because when we were growing up, we used to rock out to that song, and I used to always do the woman part. And one Halloween, probably in my late 20s, I actually dressed as a woman at a Halloween party, and we actually did Paradise by the Dashboard Light at karaoke, and I actually got to do the woman's part in drag, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, so I think about him sometimes of that, just the good times that we had, just singing along with that on the radio, or when the parents left and we'd have that rocking on and we'd sing and he'd make me be the woman part. A song that makes me cry. Okay, anybody who listens to this knows that I can cry at the mere mention of anything, pretty much. So, a song that makes me cry. I won't go for sadness. What I will go is, I will go with a different kind of crying. I have certain songs that when I hear them, they hit a note or they hit something that actually triggers my tear ducts to cry, but it's like joy of happiness. So I'm going to go a different way on this. And what it is it's for an example, I always use this one as an example. Slumdog Millionaire had a song called J-Ho. It won an Oscar, and it was just, when he comes in and sings the second line in the thing, because he'll come in, Jehu, and then he goes higher, like, I can't do it, so, and especially with my voice, Jehu, and I used to literally, when that was on my MP3, I'd tear up because the joy it got me because of what he hit me with. It's incredible. The Pussycat Doll version still does it too, because his voice still does it. Right now, there's a song by Adele called When We Were Young, and there is another part in there when she talks about, taking a picture. I tear up because it's not just the lyrics, which the lyrics are very beautiful, but it's something about her voice. No, I don't know what it is, but there is that. A song you hated but now kind of like. Well, I mentioned Bruce Springsteen and John Mellencamp, but I never hated their stuff. I was a fan of Bruce Springsteen when I was a kid, and John Mellencamp, but as I get older, the songs speak to me more, because I'm an old fuck. But a song that I hated, but now kind of like, I gotta really think about this. I know there's like, I cannot think of something right now. I know there is some, because sometimes I hear it. I'll go with something like R.E.M. And I think that's a horrible choice, but something like Losing My Religion, I wasn't as big on when it first came out. And now I listen to it and I just absolutely love the song. Maybe even some Red Hot Chili Peppers. Except for their remake of Love Roller Coaster, because as soon as I heard that, I love that. But stuff like Under the Bridge and Scar Tissue, probably when it first came out, didn't touch me at all, or just was like, okay, that's an okay song. But now I listen to it and I think it's just phenomenal. My favorite soundtrack album. Grease, of course, but I actually think I'm a bigger fan of the Xanadu album. As much as I like Grease, Xanadu, every song on that kind of touches my heart. Phantom of the Paradise, again, awesome album. Rocky Horror, I'm going to throw in a whole bunch here. Hedwig and the Angry Inch is another one I can listen to. Just a lot of them. I was a huge fan also of the Natural Born Killers soundtrack. Just because it's so screwed up. It's got Nine Inch Nails, it's got Patsy Cline, it's got just a little bit of everything on it, and I really always like that album too. So there's quite a few. I could probably do a whole segment. I could do a whole show on soundtracks I love. And people don't like this topic, but song that will play at my funeral. I'm really hoping Magic gets played by Olivia Newton-John, because it is my favorite song of all time. But a song that I always thought I wanted played at my funeral was Time by the Alan Parsons Project. It is such a beautiful song, and it's about, well, for me, it's about, leaving all the people behind and hoping one day you'll see them again, but not knowing for sure because you're not sure where you're going to go. Even when I was a kid, this song came out around 1981, and I would have been, can't do the math today, 13. I just thought it was a beautiful song when it first came out, but even as a 13-year-old kid, I knew this song was about goodbye, death. But I looked at the beauty of it, because the music's just wonderful. The show's almost over. Please go check it out if you don't know it. For you people who were brought up in that order, you'll probably play it and go, oh, that one. But I think it's a beautiful song. I've used it a couple of times in my life, and to me, it's just a stirring, haunting song. And just everything about it, even the way it fades out, it just kind of fades away. And to me, it's probably about life and death and the people we meet for the short time on planet Earth. And I always thought it would be a beautiful song to have played at my funeral. And I know people don't like to talk about it because, you know, I've talked about funerals in the past when I was in my dark period, and people just, you know. But again, I will say that for me, funerals are a positive thing, and I think they're necessary for goodbyes. So if I had to choose a song, hopefully I get more than one. I'd like to have my game plan is to play a couple sad songs and then have a whole dance party afterwards. You know, I want a whole reception where people are dancing, thinking about me, and, you know, feeling good. But if you're going for a couple of tearjerkers, Magic by Olivia Newton-John and Alan Parsons Project, Time. Anyhow, I've come to the end of another show, our unofficial St. Patrick's Day show. St. Patrick's Day is coming up, so have a good time with it. I'm hoping to have a co-host in the studio on the next show, but we will see how that goes. We're having some trouble getting our times together, but we're both working on it, and so if you hear another voice next to me, you'll know we succeeded. Anyhow, you have a great night. I had a good time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and please write me with any kind of comments, good or bad, you know, telling me the songs of the soundtrack of your life, with those questions, whatever. I'd love to hear from you. Anyhow, my time's done, and I will talk to you again very, very soon.